I'm going to read a piece from the Torchbearers, which to me illustrates the really clever use of language that I think makes this such an accessible and fun book for middle graders. So I'm going to read a chapter called Getting Ahead. Another hour or so to Chennai. That's where Kalakshetra is located, Ganesha said. Let's pass the time by getting to know one another better. We've only just met. If you think about it, let's talk about getting ahead. Getting ahead of what? Asked Prem, puzzled. And who's getting ahead? Asked Samita. Us or you? One question at a time, Ganesha said. He pointed at Prem first. Getting ahead, not ahead, is what I mean. While the Torchbearers were trying to figure this out, Ganesha pointed at Samita. Well, as for me, I had a head, but it was only later that I got a head, of course. I mean, you do know that I wasn't born with an elephant head, don't you? How insensitive of you to forget, Ganesha huffed through his trunk. It sounded like a foghorn. Samita looked aghast. Of course I know that. I didn't mean I'm so sorry. I'm just teasing you, said Ganesha, winking at her. And I'm not offended. In fact, I'm used to being the elephant in the room. The twins laughed, and after a moment, Samita joined in as well. Ganesha cleared his throat and began. It began when my mum gave me a chore. I was supposed to stand guard outside our home while she was inside, so I stood, and when someone approached, I stopped him. That someone was my father, but I didn't know it at the time. I told you earlier, he wasn't a very hands-on dad. He demanded to enter, and I firmly refused. Finally, in what I believe was a terrible overreaction, he lopped off my head. Ganesha paused dramatically, clutching his neck. The children, even though they knew the story, gasped collectively. It was another matter entirely to hear the story from straight from the horse's, or rather the elephant's, mouth. My mother ran out, and my parents had what must have been a legendary argument. Naturally, I was beside myself at the time. Samita giggled and then clapped her hands over her mouth. Ahem, yes, I was quite beside myself, so I couldn't give you the exact details. But my father felt terrible, and he wanted to make amends. So he went looking for another head. Thank goodness he didn't find a squirrel or something tiny. That would have looked silly. He found an elephant, and the next thing I knew, I was part pachyderm. Ganesha looked at the stunned faces in front of him with great satisfaction. That's how I got ahead. Now, who's next?